Welcome back to Steel City Sports. So today we're going to be predicting every single game in Week 9 of the NFL season. So my record going into Week 9 right now is 84-46. So let's just get right into the game. Starting off with Thursday Night Football, we of course have the Halloween night game between the Texans and the Jets. So I think it actually makes a lot of sense that we're having the Jets play on Halloween night because their season has been a complete horror show, an absolute nightmare of a season. So it's actually very appropriate that the Jets are playing on Halloween night. I think they're coming off of legitimately the most embarrassing loss of the season thus far from any team in the NFL right now, losing to the Patriots last week. It was already going to be rough going into that Patriots game because they already had 5 losses, but their season was on the line. Like, there was no scenario in which they could lose that game, and yet they still lost that game to, I think, arguably a bottom 3 team in the NFL with the Patriots. So that was really the final straw that broke the camel's back with the New York Jets. Their season's over. We know that they were going to have a ton of primetime games just for the simple fact that they have Aaron Rodgers on the roster, but this team sucks. It really does. It really is a shame because I still like a lot of players on the Jets. You know, if you just look at their players in a vacuum, the names attached to this team: Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams. Like, there are so many really high-end level players on this team, but it's just a mess. It's a shit show, and it really comes back to a point of the NFL is not really like the NBA where you can just throw guys together, throw star names together and expect that to work. We've seen that fail time after time in the NFL, and this is just the latest example of that. And I really think this all comes down to the simple fact that Aaron Rodgers is no longer a good quarterback. Like, it's very, very simple. That is the most glaring problem with the New York Jets is Aaron Rodgers, at the end of the day, is a 40-year-old quarterback off of an Achilles injury. Like, it's really not that surprising that Aaron is not that good anymore. Like, his mobility is completely gone. He's just not very good anymore. Like, I don't know how people were surprised by this. I was, one of the most vocal guys. I was trying to warn everyone who subscribed to this channel that Aaron was not going to be good this year, and a lot of people thought I was a fucking moron for that, but turns out I was right about that. Jets just aren't good, so I cannot pick them in this game. Even though they are favored in this game, actually. They're favored, I think, by 2.5 points. I think that comes down to 2 reasons. Number 1, they're at home, and number 2, the Texans are dealing with a lot of key injuries right now, particularly their wide receiver room, with Stephon Diggs is now going to be out for the year, and Nico Collins is still out. He'll probably be back soon, probably next week. So your number 1 receiver now is Tank Dell, who I like as a 3rd receiver, but as a number 1, that's a little yikes. And their passing game has been struggling as of late. That was with Stephon Diggs. So, the momentum would tell you should actually pick the Jets in this situation because the Texans are in a really rough spot. However, I can't pick the Jets. I don't trust them, and we know that Texans defense is really lethal. You got an incredible pass rush between Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. We know the Jets' offensive line is atrocious. I mean, their offensive line is a straight-up atrocity. And so that Texans pass rush, I think, is really going to wreak havoc on Aaron. Like we just said, he can't move. So when that pocket collapses, I think that they're really going to have a field day on Aaron Rodgers and the New York Jets offense. So they don't even really need CJ in the offense to go that crazy because I just think their defense is going to own Aaron and that offense. Give me the Houston Texans in that game for Halloween night. Happy Halloween. So let's get into the Sunday slate of games. So first one I have here is Broncos at Ravens. Something that I did note here is the Ravens are favored 9.5 in this game. And when you look at the 2 games that when you look at 2 of their 3 losses, obviously their first loss was against the Chiefs, but the other 2 losses, the Raiders and the Browns, I think they were favored by 9.5 in both those games. I know that they were against Cleveland last week. I'm pretty sure that's what they were favored against the Raiders in week 2. So I had to note that spread just because I find that kind of interesting. Whenever they're big favorites, they lost both those games. So that's kind of interesting for me. Maybe if you want to take the Broncos to cover the spread, might not be a bad bet. But I have to roll with the Ravens here, even though I have my problems. If you listen to my reaction to Week 8 I really gave the Ravens a hard time because I don't understand the game plan from the Ravens, the inconsistency. It's like we have half a season now worth of tape. Like, we know what works for the Baltimore Ravens. We know what doesn't work for the Baltimore Ravens. And it's clear. When you use Derrick Henry in this offense, it's arguably the best team in the NFL. You know, that 4-game stretch where they looked incredible. They crushed the Cowboys. They crushed the Bills. They were looking incredible, and it was because they were using Derrick Henry. Then, when you look at their losses, when you look at their losses, it's because they didn't use Derrick Henry. They used him like under 15 times in each of those games, and particularly in that game last week against the Cleveland Browns. They only ran the football with Derrick Henry 11 times in that game. That's completely fucking unacceptable in any which way. That is unacceptable to do that. Derrick Henry needs to get at least 20 to 25 carries a game. I don't care. Unless he's injured or like out of breath, I don't care. Derrick Henry, you need to utilize him more. That is exactly, for me, the chief reason why they lost that fucking game against the Cleveland Browns is because they ran Derrick Henry 11 times. Like, I don't know how fucking dumb you have to be in Todd Monken to do that. Like, you have a proven track record this year of when we don't use Derrick Henry, we lose. When we use him, we win. Why the fuck are you only using him 11 times? That, to me, is so mind-meltingly infuriating because it's not like it's an up-in-the-air thing. It's like, oh, we don't know why we lost. No, we know why you lost. You didn't use your Hall of Fame running back. It's not fucking rocket science here. So that's something the Ravens really need to get back to against this Broncos team is running the football with Derrick Henry. The best running back in the NFL has a guaranteed ticket to Canton, Ohio when his career's over. Use Derrick Henry. It's not hard. So next up, yeah, like I said, I'm going with the Ravens with this one. Even though the Broncos have been a lot more scrappy than what I thought they'd be. Bo Nix was decent against the Panthers, but like I've said in the past, I think you and me could be pretty decent against the Panthers defense. So I don't know what the takeaway from that. I don't mind Bo Nix. I think I was a lot more critical of him than I probably should have been. I still don't think Bo Nix is going to be like a superstar or anything, but, you know, he has the Broncos at 5-3. I guess he's a capable starter. I don't know. Like I said, I'm still going to kind of reserve my overall take on the Broncos. I'm going to let the whole season play out before I really give like a strong take about how I feel about Denver going forward, because I still have a lot of problems with this Broncos team, and I still think 5-3 is a bit of an inflated record. So I'm going to reserve my big take for Denver till the end of the year, but give me Baltimore here. But like I said, probably wouldn't be a bad bet to take Broncos to cover those 9.5 points. Next, we have Raiders at Bengals. We don't need to spend a whole lot of time on this. The Raiders are a fucking pathetic joke, so give me the Cincinnati Bengals. Even though I have problems with the Bengals, their defense is really, really bad, but look at the quarterback matchup. I mean, Joe Burrow individually has still played really good. It's just when they've gone up against other good quarterbacks, particularly you think back to like that Baltimore game, their defense just couldn't get a single stop. But now they're going to be playing against, I don't even know who the fuck the Raiders starter is now. Is it Gardner? Is it Aiden O'Connell? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. The Raiders are a clown show. And like I've said, the Raiders just need to fully implode their team. Like, they've been trying to do this over the past couple of years. Like, last year they brought in Jimmy G to be like their bridge quarterback. This year they brought in Gardner Minshew. They benched both of them in back-to-back years. They have a guy in Antonio Pierce at head coach. I don't really think he knows what he's doing. I think he's in over his head. I would just hit the big red panic button for the Raiders, blow it up, trade Max Crosby, trade any player on this team not named Brock Bowers, and rebuild for the future. Go get Shedeur Sanders, go get Cam Ward, whoever in the draft. Just start over, because this team is no fucking good. So give me the Bengals here. The Bengals are a very flawed team, but not as flawed as the Raiders. Give me the Bengals. Next up, we got Patriots at Titans, a really, really bad game. You have arguably two bottom 5 teams in the NFL right here. If Drake May was going to play in this game, I would pick the Patriots, but I don't think he's playing. I haven't heard any thing about his status in terms of his injury, but he did go out very early in that game last week against the Jets and did not return. So that's not a great sign to me. So, like I said, if Drake May was playing, I would go with them, but I don't know if he is. It's probably unlikely that he does. So I'm going to roll with the Titans here. whether it's Mason Rudolph or Will Levis. It's clear Mason isn't that good, but I still think he gives you a better shot than Will Levis, because Will Levis was arguably in that conversation for worst starting quarterback in the NFL this year. We're going to have to probably make that list, because I feel like I say that about a lot of guys, but I'm going to have to sit down and write out the list of like the top 5 worst starting quarterbacks this season, because we know the guys who are going to be on there. It's going to be like Deshaun, Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, Will Levis. You know, like I really have to sit down and write that list out. I think that'd be a fun video. But give me the Titans here, just because the Patriots are a little worse than the Titans. I still think the Titans have decent players. Like, they have good players on the team. Jeffrey Simmons, L'Jarius Sneed, Calvin Ridley, Tony Pollard. Like, I like some of their vets. And for me, I guess that's enough to get over the Patriots. Like I said, this is just not a very good game. Speaking of a not very good game, we have another really bad one between the Saints and Panthers. This is a fucking toilet bowl of a game. I mean, Bryce Young versus Spencer Rattler would have been an awesome matchup in college football a couple years ago, but in the NFL, this is a very yucky, toilet of a game here. And I actually really debated between which one I was going to pick here, because I think they're both so bad. Both the quarterbacks suck so bad. We know Bryce Young is still going to be playing this because Dalton's out. I think if Dalton was playing in this game, I probably would go Carolina. But since it is Bryce Young, that's what gave me so much hesitation, because Spencer Rattler and Bryce Young, they have like almost identical numbers. Like, they're both competing for who can be the worst quarterback in the NFL right now. For me, it just came down to Alvin Kamara. I think he is really like the best player in this matchup, and he's on the Saints. So for that reason, I went with the Saints. But very shitty game. Next, we have Cowboys at Falcons. If you know, I picked the Cowboys last week. Very ashamed of it. Will never, ever do that again. So I'm going with the Atlanta Falcons here. Not that I'll ever not pick the Cowboys again, but in terms of like a big matchup against a playoff team, that's never going to happen ever again on this channel. So give me the Atlanta Falcons for that simple fact. Dak Prescott cannot win a big game. You have to give you my whole shtick. Like, if you're a longtime listener of Steel City Sports, you know exactly how I feel about Dallas, and that's why I am so ashamed of myself for picking them against San Francisco last week. Give me the Falcons. They're coming off a big win against Tampa. Next, we have a divisional matchup, Dolphins at Bills. So a little more interesting than it would have been, because obviously Tua's back now, but I still give me the Bills. I mean, the Bills have owned the Dolphins in the Josh Allen era. I think Josh Allen has only lost to the Dolphins like one time in his NFL career, which is like an insane stat, but it just shows you how much Josh Allen owns the Miami Dolphins. And I don't know. Like, for me, I think the Dolphins, they're a team I defended a lot last year, but when you look at like the objective facts, they're another team similar to Dallas that really struggles with like the big games against good teams. So I really think the Dolphins are like the Cowboys of the AFC. Like, they're really flashy. They'll have good moments against shitty teams, but anytime they play real competition, they really show you who they are. And Miami kind of proved that even earlier this season. You know, in that game where Tua got his concussion, before he got hurt, he had 3 picks in that game against the Buffalo Bills. He was having one of his worst games as an NFL pro against this Bills defense, and that was in Miami. Now we're going to be in November when this game starts, so it's going to be a little colder up in Buffalo, and I think the Bills should pretty soundly defeat them, especially now after the acquisition of Amari Cooper just changes this Bills offense. They didn't use him a whole lot last week, but I'm expecting as the year goes on for Amari to get more and more integrated into this offense. So give me the Buffalo Bills here. Next, we have Chargers at Browns. So if you listen to my reaction to Week 8, I said you give the Cleveland Browns a functioning quarterback, and it turns out they're not a bad team, because on paper, it's still a very good roster. You know, last year it was an 11-win team, mostly due to the fact they had Joe Flacco. When they had Joe Flacco, they were one of the best teams in the NFL. I think they went like 5-1 with Joe Flacco. They're one of the most lethal passing games in the entire league under Joe Flacco. So if you would have just had, like, if the Cleveland Browns give them this exact roster, and instead of playing Deshaun all those games to start off the year, let's just say Joe Flacco was the starter for the Browns this entire season, I think they would have been easily a playoff team. But they didn't want to bring Joe Flacco back because that would have caused a lot of controversy within the locker room and like with the fandom. Everyone would have been chanting for Flacco, and obviously the owners wouldn't want to play Flacco because they want to play the guy that they're paying over $200 million. So the Browns really shot themselves in the foot here. I do kind of feel bad for Stefanski. I feel like he's tried to do the best with this, but it really is just a shit show with Deshaun on the roster. But Jameis, he just beat the Ravens. Like I said, you give them a capable QB and they're a functioning team. I still have to roll with the Chargers here just because I can't really put a whole lot of faith in the Browns. I know they're coming off a big win against the Ravens, but I still can't trust them. To me, like, I don't know. I don't know what to do with the Browns. I really just don't know because, like I said, I still like their roster, but they're a mess right now. Look at their record. They have 2 wins on the year. So give me the Chargers. Although I do think that game is going to be pretty close. But give me the Chargers. Just trust them more. Next I have Commanders. We have Commanders at Giants. Obviously give me the Commanders here. They played earlier in the season. The Commanders won because the Giants didn't have a field goal kicker. That doesn't matter now. I mean, Washington has quickly become one of the most lethal offenses in the NFL due to Jayden Daniels being, I think he's already a superstar. He is what CJ was last year, and he might, I have to look at the numbers, but he might even be better than when CJ was last year. And I said it time after time, CJ Stroud had the best rookie season of all time last year. Like, people were saying, oh, it's in the conversation. Like, no, it was objectively the best rookie season ever. You know, he went to a poverty franchise that finished with 2 wins and led that team to 10 wins and won a playoff game against the league's best passing defense while only throwing like 4 interceptions as a rookie or something like that. Like, yeah, it was objectively the best rookie season ever. Jay Daniels might be having a better year than that. This guy is fucking special. Jayden Daniels is already, to me, he's easily in the top 10. It's just, where does he fall in the top 10? That's something we're going to have to probably make a video about. I'll have to write out where Jayden Daniels does fall. But that guy's a superstar. You know, he's going to be, if he continues on this trajectory, he is going to be one of the best players in the National Football League. And the Giants, they're the Giants. I mean, what do you want me to say? I mean, Daniel Jones sucks. They need a new quarterback, but we've been saying that for years, and the Giants haven't gotten a new quarterback. So, you know, we're going to turn around, and it's going to be, hey, Daniel Jones is going into year 10 with the New York Giants. It's actually not that far away because he's in, what, year 6 or year 7 right now? So it's going to be crazy to think, like, if he does still last that long, like, think about that. Daniel Jones, if he lasted 10 years with the same team, it's not that crazy. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Do feel bad for the Giants fans there. And there are parts that I do like about the Giants. I think their pass rush is actually, you know, I haven't looked at the numbers, like, in terms of, like, their sack totals, but whenever I watched them against my Steelers last week, the Giants' pass rush was pretty active. Like, they were getting Russ out of the pocket. They were moving him around. And I do, of course, love Malik Neighbors. I think that guy is a freak. I mean, he is going to be quickly one of the best receivers in the league, if not already is. So I do like parts of the Giants, but look at the quarterback matchup. I mean, it's night and day between Jayden Daniels, who's legitimately like an MVP candidate right now, could honestly be the favorite, and Daniel Jones, who's just not very good at anything on the football field. So give me the Washington Commanders there. Next, we have Jags at Eagles. I'm rolling with the Eagles. I picked the Eagles a lot this year. I kind of feel like I have a vested interest in the Philadelphia Eagles because, you know, I do have Jalen Hurts in fantasy, so I do pay close attention to this Eagles team. They were my pick to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. I've now kind of said that I think the Lions are going to do that, but I don't know what it is about the Eagles. I'm kind of enamored by them because this roster is, I've said it again, like, if you've listened to me, you're probably sick of hearing me say this, but the Eagles literally have a Pro Bowl roster on offense. And that's why, to me, they have been a little disappointing to start off the year because you should literally just be crushing teams. Now, I think a lot of that comes down to A.J. Brown missed some games, Devontae Smith missed some games, so I think that's really why the Eagles got off to kind of a weird start, even though Jalen was bad against the Packers in Brazil for week 1. But he obviously was not good when his receivers were gone. But now that he's had them back, they've had 2 dominant wins against the New York Giants and then last week against the Cincinnati Bengals, where Jalen had 3 rushing touchdowns, getting back more into that dual threat ability of him. And Jacksonville's just not very good. Jacksonville's been a dumpster fire this year, so this one to me is not a very tough pick. Give me the Philadelphia Eagles. Next up, we have the Bears at Cardinals. Cardinals have been a really tough team for me to predict this year. I do think I have sort of a bias towards them because I really like Kyler. I'm going with the Bears, though. I really think the Bears are just a better overall team. I think they're pretty much better at everything other than quarterback. I still think Kyler is better than Caleb Williams, but outside of that, I think the Chicago Bears do everything better than the Arizona Cardinals, and their defense is really, really coming along as an elite unit. They would have held, I don't know, I don't remember what the final score was for the Commanders-Bears game last week, but they would have held that high-power offense to under 20 if it weren't for Tyreek Stevenson being a fucking goof, yelling at fans whenever he should be in coverage, and instead he tips the ball to Noah Brown for a fucking Hail Mary touchdown. So the defense, I think, is really good. It's really elite. Matt Eberflus has figured that side of the ball out. The offense has been kind of inconsistent. I do think DeAndre Swift has really, really been the X factor for this offense. Caleb Williams has had glimpses of brilliance, especially against the Jaguars in London. He had, 4 passing touchdowns. So I think I'm a lot higher on the Bears than most people. I did pick them as a playoff team. I still kind of think that they could be a playoff team, and I think they're going to beat Arizona. Next, we have Rams at Seahawks. This was a really, really tough game for me to pick because I could see the argument for both sides of this game. I found it kind of interesting that the Rams are actually favored in this game when it's in Seattle, when we know Seattle has a top 5 home field advantage. That stadium is insane. And the Seahawks have a really good team as well. On paper, I really like their roster, and they're getting really healthy as well, especially their front 7. That's why I think they went on that, 3 or 4 game losing streak. That losing skid they went on, it was really because the front of their defense was all injured. All of their guys on their defensive line were injured, but now they're all getting healthy. They're all back now. That's for me why I'm picking Seattle, because the Rams, even though they got a big win against Minnesota, they got their receivers back, they're still really banged up on that offensive line. So, for me, that is the big key matchup of this game is the Seattle Seahawks' defensive line that's now fully healthy versus a really injury-riddled Los Angeles Rams O-line. So that's really what it comes down to me. I think Stafford is still going to, put up his numbers. He's got his weapons back, but I do think that pass rush is going to be a lot more productive for Seattle. And Geno Smith, despite what you will say, obviously I still think in big moments he is very limited. He shit his pants against the Niners. But Geno Smith is still, as of week 9, he is still the leading passer right now in the NFL. In terms of passing yards, he's number 1 in that category still right now. So Geno, can struggle in big spots, but he's still an extremely productive player within the Seahawks offense. I still really like Kenneth Walker a lot. I like the head coach here, even though obviously McVay is the probably the second best coach right now. But this is a really, really good divisional matchup, one I definitely want to watch. I'm going with Seattle here, like I said, for their defensive line getting healthier. I think it's going to be a good matchup. I could see it going either way, but I'm going with Seattle. Next, we have Lions at Packers, so we have another big divisional matchup here. Give me the Lions here. Jordan Love, to me, for right now, is just too inconsistent for me, I think. I like Jordan Love for sure. I think he's really good. He's going to have a great career, but for right now, he kind of reminds me of a young Josh Allen. That's been my comparison to Jordan Love. He needs to be sandpapered. That's something Cowherd always talks about, is he needs to have his skill set and his mechanics refined, because he is way too reckless with the football for my taste. And I get it. he will have those throws where he rips one for 50 yards for a touchdown, and it looks awesome. But he's also had a lot of games this year where he's thrown multiple interceptions, and it's looked really bad. And he has single-handedly cost them a couple games this year. And sometimes you can overcome that, like last week when you're playing against a team like Jacksonville. But when you're playing the Detroit Lions, who, like I said, right now are my favorite to come out of the NFC right now, I don't think you're going to be able to quite overcome those turnovers from Jordan Love. And just couple that with the fact that I think the Lions have the best overall roster in the NFC right now. Give me the Detroit Lions in this game. But that's going to be a really, really good matchup. Really good, divisional matchup. Next we have, this is another week. We talked about it a couple weeks back whenever the Bengals-Giants was the night game for Sunday. Here's another just bizarre Sunday night football game. The Colts at Vikings. What? Like, what? I don't understand. Why the fuck wouldn't you just put Lions-Packers as the night game? Or even Rams-Seahawks as the night game? Why is Colts-Vikings? That's just... And I know you could say, well, they didn't know before the season Anthony Richardson was going to suck, so they thought it would be a pretty good game. But no, before the season, nobody knew Sam Darnold was not going to suck. So even if you're using that argument, it's like this was still just a really bizarre game to schedule in a primetime moment. Give me the Minnesota Vikings. Even though the Colts did bench Anthony Richardson in favor of Joe Flacco, which I think was 100% the right decision. I don't understand people online. There were so many people I saw outraged at that. They were like, how could they do this to Anthony Richardson? They just killed his confidence. How could they do this to him? Guys, he sucks. He's statistically one of the most inaccurate passers to ever play quarterback at an NFL level. He's just not good right now as a passer. My silver lining for that is, though, he's 22 years old, guys. He can sit for a little bit and try to develop and try to... redefine his game. He clearly has traits. The Colts are not going to cut him or anything. He's just going to the bench for at least the rest of this year, I think. It's the best thing for both sides. This is the best thing for Anthony Richardson. This is the best thing for the Colts to bench him right now. He's just not very good. So everyone needs to pump the fucking brakes on the, crying about Anthony Richardson's career is over. No, it's not. He's going to get another chance. But for right now, Flacco gives them the best shot to win football games. So, even though that being said, I'm picking the Vikings just because I still think the Vikings are an elite team. A little bit questionable they did lose that game to the Rams, but I think it really came down to they probably didn't game plan for Puka Nacua at all because we didn't even know Puka was playing that game until 3 hours before the game started. It was literally out of nowhere. They were just Puka Nacua ready to go out of nowhere. No one thought he was going to play. So I think he really was the X factor in that game. He was making plays all over the place. The Colts, they are not, I don't know. The Colts are just a frustrating team. Obviously, a big part of that is Anthony Richardson. So you take him out of the equation, I think the Colts are definitely going to have a lot more fight in them. But still, from a talent perspective, they just can't match up with Minnesota. So give me the Vikings. And then, of course, we have Monday Night Football. Buccaneers at Chiefs. This is a Super Bowl 55 rematch, obviously, where the Buccaneers beat the Chiefs. Obviously, they had a different QB back then, Tom Brady instead of Baker Mayfield. But one interesting thing I did find about this game is the fact that the Chiefs are 8.5-point favorites. I thought was a lot. I get it. The Chiefs are undefeated. They're the back-to-back champs. They have Mahomes. They have Kelsey. They have Andy Reid. We know the whole shtick with the Chiefs. But 8.5 to me kind of felt insulting to Tampa. I really do think that might be something I really do bet is the Buccaneers to cover here. I am going to pick the Chiefs, but I don't think it's going to be a slaughter. Even though, obviously, the Bucs had those devastating injuries to Godwin and Evans. That's why this spread is so big. I think if those two were playing in this game, this spread would be a lot more closer. But those two guys being out, that's why this spread is so large. That being said, though, the Bucs put up a really good fight against Atlanta last week. And I know Atlanta's defense is not as good as Kansas City's, obviously. But it's not like they're scrubs. I still think Atlanta has a good defense. Tampa Bay still put up 26 on that Atlanta defense without Godwin, without Evans. So I think these sports books are really underrating the Bucs. They're underrating the fight of Baker and the defense here. So I think it'll be a lot closer than 8.5, but I still have to roll with the Chiefs. I haven't picked against the Chiefs thus far, and they're 7-0. So I'm not going to start picking against them. They're the only undefeated team in football right now. So yeah, that's all my picks for Week 9 of the NFL season. If you made it this far in the video, please like and subscribe.